I'm Haley. Welcome to the whole podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Korf. I am your vision impaired host, and we have David Johnson here with us today. David, did you want to explain a little bit about what you do and how you help the community?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. So I'm here to talk about transit, public transportation in Kansas City. I have several roles, several hats, if you will. So a founding member of the Kansas City Streetcar Authority board, which operates the Kansas City streetcar system. In my day job, I'm a public transportation consultant for a company called TransPro Consulting. And we help public sector clients all over the U.S. Solve their problems with a particular focus on transit, and that's my personal focus at the firm. And then I've also worked at KCATA, where I was head of planning. Was there 6 years and helped build Prospect Max and several other technology related projects. And I've been a transit advocate in Kansas City for a lot longer than any of that. And that's how I got into the roles that I'm in today, by really leading an advocacy conversation in Kansas City to grow transit and make transit more accessible.
So you're all about the transit. Like
That's
that's
right.
that's all of it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's quite a interesting history you have there.
Thank you.
Welcome. And remind me if I'm wrong, but you do have a journalism background as well?
Yeah. So KU grad, William Allen White School of Journalism and Mass Communications in the 90s. And yeah, emphasis was on kind of production, more design, but definitely spent a lot of time in publishing, and yeah, big fan of magazines and newspapers, still a news junkie to this day. I keep a lively Twitter presence, or X presence, I guess,
Yep.
for whatever that's worth, and have engaged with a lot of local media people through my advocacy work and my work in the Crossroads where I used to live.
Okay. And you helped with the streetcar. Ugh. And you were there for the grand opening, right?
That's right. I was happy to be on stage to celebrate with all the local dignitaries. It was a great honor, and I don't take that very lightly at all. And I think honoring the fact that the Main Street extension of the streetcar, which just opened October 24th, was born out of advocacy efforts, because the city did two streetcar projects. So the first downtown streetcar project, which was mostly led by the city hall, but had advocate backing, of course, and then a subsequent expansion in 2014 that failed at the ballot box. And so after that, city hall was like, we're going to take a break from this. You go, the challenge was to advocates. You go raise the support necessary to do what became the Main Street extension, which was part of that 2014 vote. And it had the most political support, both from prior light rail elections and also from the 2014 vote. You could see a clear pattern of voter support for streetcar in Midtown and Plaza.
Yeah. How did you reach out to everybody in the community? How did that work? How did you let people know that this was something to vote for?
Yeah, so when we did the downtown line, we started by stitching the three neighborhoods together. So River Market, the downtown loop, and Crossroads. So before that, the three neighborhoods really didn't have a reason to collaborate on anything. I mean, we knew each other existed, and there were intersections there, but this really gave the neighborhoods a chance to bring their own voice, but then develop a coalition, essentially, of residents who supported doing streetcar. Which, it is important to note that the streetcar project in 2012 was the sort of phoenix rising from the ashes of failed light rail proposals. And so it was sort of our consolation prize, and that's how it was, sort of deemed at the time. 2 miles of rail, what's that going to do? But I think advocates clearly recognize that if we weren't going to be able to do something bigger, then starting small isn't a bad idea, especially if you knew that there would be a path forward to something bigger. And that's where we landed this month.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. Oh my goodness. You said 2012?
Yeah, so that was when the key steps in the downtown streetcar were finalized. So the elections to form the special district and the creation of the Kansas City Streetcar Authority, which didn't exist prior to then.
Okay.
And I was asked to serve on the mayor's, which was Mayor James at the time, his governance task force for streetcar. And that was made up of various people from downtown and was facilitated by Warren Erdman from at the time Kansas City Southern. And we just had a conversation about like what this structure will look like because the city's starting proposition was that it probably shouldn't be under the ATA, under the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority, and then beyond that, they were open to options. So what we decided was to look at three cities for governance sort of peer examples. And I believe those were Portland, Seattle, and Tampa, which all had streetcars that we either like knew or had been around. And we just looked at their model, like who makes policy decisions, who owns the system and the assets, and then who accepts federal funds. Those are kind of the three components of governance. And we decided that the city would own the streetcar, that they would be the recipient of federal funds, the sponsor, if you will, and then that a nonprofit would be set up, which became the Kansas City Streetcar Authority, would be set up to operate the system on behalf of the city. And what that did was it allowed non government voices to be at the table, which is why our system works so well because you have people from the private sector, me, an advocate and transit user, was at the table for that. And my friend Matt Staub was also in that same boat, a downtown resident and transit user. And so I think that mix, which is all about a diversity of thought and opinion, right, and expertise, to make the best streetcar in America. And so we were able to prove that downtown, and then it was an easy sell, relatively speaking, to extend that to Midtown.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's 13, 14 years of my life, um, and it seems like it went in an instant. But I know that's a lot of hard work over a long period of time and only one sort of anxiety attack.
Only one?
Only one.
Oh my goodness, I would have had like 10. Um, well, that's just amazing. I can't even imagine what you had to go through to jump through all the hoops. I'm assuming there's a lot of hoops that y'all had to jump through, but as somebody who doesn't drive, I want to say thank you because that is amazing and it allows me to be more independent and not rely on family. So,
Well, Haley, I have to say, one of the first things we did once the downtown streetcar started testing and the team replicated that with the extension was my friend Mike lives in the River Market and is in a motorized wheelchair. And, he and I would talk, like, we were not like super close friends, but we were around each other enough to talk about, using the Amtrak to go to St. Louis and other places in Missouri and how that's sort of very freeing if you can't always drive. And I was car free at the time. And so that just kept with me for some time. And then we got into testing. And I said to the streetcar team, I said, look, let's get the people who this will benefit most, the people with mobility issues, and get them to test with us, right? Don't make assumptions that we know exactly how this is going to be perceived. And so we got a big group together and they rode the streetcar and gave feedback. And it was some of the best memories I have because seeing Mike roll on and roll off the streetcar with basically effortless, uh, ease was really life changing. And it made me really just double down more on accessibility issues in transit because, um, our pedestrians, network in Kansas City is still a struggle. And so if transit can help alleviate some of that, whether it's through what we call paratransit or just traditional transit like bus and streetcar, then let's do that and let's go all in because it's not getting any easier out there. It's getting a little easier, I should say, but it's still pretty hard
yes.
to get around if you're not in your own vehicle or have someone to take care of that for you. So
Mhm.
it's always in the back of my mind.
Mm. We very much appreciate that. I can tell you right away because everybody is so excited about this transportation option and it's not easy. You were right. So thank you.
Yeah. So
Mm.
there's a few things I wanted to point out about the streetcar in
Yes.
particular that make it so accessible. And it is the most accessible streetcar in America
Okay.
because of these factors.
Okay.
So, first and foremost, the vehicles on the inside are 100% low floor. So, what that means is there are no steps inside. So
Okay.
even on a bus, in fact, I don't think there are any 100% low floor buses anywhere in the world. But if there are, we can correct that in the notes or something. But in Kansas City, it's especially true. So there's a step up to get to the back, and if you have to use the ramp, that can just lead to time, extra time it takes to board.
Hmm.
But on the streetcars that we have, and we deliberately chose them, we had options. They're 100% low floor, so no steps anywhere inside the vehicle.
I love that.
Yeah. And then I guess this is probably even more important is on all of the stations, not just some of them. All of the stations have a level boarding surface with the vehicle and the platform so that there's no step up getting into the vehicle from the side or what was the sidewalk, but is
Hmm.
now a streetcar stop. And so those two things really stand out. And when you see people take advantage of them, you can tell it's different and you can see it on their faces. You can see the way they're just rolling right on. And that benefit carries over to people pushing strollers, riding bikes, anybody who just has trouble stepping up, especially when we're trying to keep things moving on the streetcar. And I'm really proud that we were able to, when I was at KCATA, to get some of those pieces in place for Prospect Max. So there are level boarding platforms on that
Mm.
one Max route, and really proud that that's still in operation.
Yeah. No, I noticed that it was the same level because I rode it that first day with my colleague, and it was a lot easier because I use a cane in
Yeah.
unknown areas, and I didn't have to like look at everyone else and see what they were doing. I could just go and do what I needed to do, which was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is harder for operations because everything has to line up,
Hmm.
and not everybody's a fan of making it harder to operate transit. But again, the benefit for customers and for people with mobility issues is just amazing. And I know why it's not done everywhere, but it really should be done everywhere.
I agree. I noticed there were different colors associated on the, I want to say, platforms where you board.
Yeah,
What are those?
so we didn't do this downtown, and I think we just probably just didn't know enough at the time. But there are four doors on every streetcar, on both sides. But on the side you're boarding, there'd be four, and two of them are really, for wheelchair specifically, meaning they're wide enough, and then the space once you get in those two of the four doors, wide enough to navigate, back and forth. The other two doors at each end are, I think, wide enough for a wheelchair, but then once you get in, you're kind of stuck. Not stuck, but like it's harder to move around, especially in a motorized chair. So the theory was with the extension to make it more clear, and so those blue tactile tiles or strips are to indicate this is the place you should board if you're in a mobility device or using a mobility device. And that just is another way to reinforce that. There were already signs, and we did outreach, with the downtown starter line, but it's absolutely to make sure that someone in a motorized chair specifically or just wheelchair knows to board there. So when you see those, that's what that's for. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
I was I was asking all the questions when we were there that first day and I was like, where do we find all these answers? And I'm like, here we go. So
yeah.
thank you. And I really appreciated the truncated domes, the
Mhm.
raised tactile bumps. That
Yeah.
really helped me a lot.
Yep. So that's basically become a big part of the transportation system since ADA is to give people the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 to give people some sort of tactile warning that
Hmm.
there's something coming up, whether it's traffic at an intersection or a moving streetcar or a bus, and so it's really become a great tool. And when it first started rolling out, it was a little bit dicey with some of the implementations, but now people are a little bit more comfortable like, oh, this is also directional, not just, oh, hey, here's a big tactile strip,
Hmm.
walk out, in any direction. So things are getting a lot better, and people are learning from, the initial deployments to make things better.
Yeah. Um, I've been working with the city a little bit for tactile domes. Um, Sometimes in the middle of an intersection, like a four-way, uh, the tactile domes are more facing in the center of the.
Which might lead you to walk into traffic
Exactly. And
or
so
into the middle of the intersection. Yeah.
yes. So I contacted the city, and the guy who I ended up speaking with, Uday, he knew exactly what I was talking about. So he is very excited. He's like, first off, super excited to receive an email about truncated domes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's do this. So he tested out a corner and implemented a couple of things. And I took one of my colleagues, a mobility instructor, and we assessed the situation. And now we're trying to get more people to assess it as well. So it's not just me and one other person, but I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to take time for people to trust that that information they're receiving
Yes.
from the tactile domes is
Yes.
accurate because of the past implementations that weren't quite perfect.
Yes.
And of course, the city itself has, and every place in Kansas City region has a long way to go with just basic sidewalk infrastructure and
Yes.
making sure that's passable
Yes.
to someone in a mobility device. Whether it's like tree roots uprooting the sidewalk and making it really difficult, or just no curb cut whatsoever.
Mhm.
And I think Kansas City, Missouri has like $1 billion sidewalk and ADA backlog. So these are big problems.
Yes.
And the good news is that specifically in Kansas City, Missouri, they are making much more progress than they had been, because people are now kind of, saying, let's build a new sidewalk here. And then when they go in and touch that, they have to fix the ADA issue.
Mhm.
So it's creating a lot of good opportunities to get around without transit, which would be ideal if people could just be completely self-mobile, if they have the skills and the tools to do that.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
What a world it would be.
Yeah.
But I am just very thankful that the city and everybody was just willing to even communicate with me because I wasn't sure. It was like, where do I start for one? That was overwhelming. And so you get into it and you're like, oh, they know what I'm talking about. And it was just best day ever.
Yeah. It's hard to say if we would be here without the ADA because, you know, it existed for a very distinct reason, or it was
Mhm.
created for a very distinct reason. And seeing the changes that have come out, even though it's often considered an unfunded mandate, um, you know, no one was going to do those things on their own, and certainly not to the degree that ADA ended up implementing,
Mhm.
and especially with infrastructure, just because, you know, you just it was impossible in a lot of cases to get around, and that taxes the transit system. So I mentioned earlier paratransit, which is transit for people who can't use the typical bus or streetcar, and so that's a added cost for local governments. And if you can make the transit system more accessible and the pedestrian system more accessible, that should and could reduce the cost of providing ADA paratransit. People do want to be self-sufficient at the end of the day. But often we've created an environment that makes that really difficult.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. So then let's take a look at these questions.
All right.
Okay. So you and I have talked a little bit before about the history of public transportation. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Kansas City has a pretty vibrant history in transit before the streetcar. And I'm quite a student of that. So we go back to 1870 when the first horse and mule drawn rail cars traversed rutted streets. This was before even paving. We were doing rail between Kansas City and Westport when Westport was a separate city and Kansas City was very small. And that was the birth of really what we now consider public transit. And it went through several technology iterations. So what was horses and mules became steam powered cable cars, and then that quickly led to electric uh, streetcars powered by overhead lines. And there were quite a few things going on with the technology and why it transitioned to electricity. Number one, electricity became more available, and the companies that made electricity found a reason to offer transit. So this was all a public or private sector enterprise for profit, until in Kansas City, it was until the 60s when it became a government funded public service. But yeah, they were trying to make money, and were did make money for some time until other factors played into that. So Kansas City obviously grew quite a bit between 1870 and 1965, which is the creation of the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority as a public entity. And you had, public investment in highways, airports, less investment in uh, walkability because people found other ways to get around that were faster and seemingly more efficient, meaning cars. And so people just sort of shifted the priority. The governments shifted the priority of what they would invest in, and that led to sort of a crisis in transit in America that was also accelerated by labor issues. So it was not a great place to work in turn of the century public transportation, and so that created essentially was one of the creations of the labor movement in America. Trolley strikes and violence and lots of unrest. But once that was more or less settled, it became a bit of a drain on those private companies. And they, in Kansas City, they consolidated and became essentially one company near the end, and it couldn't make money. And at that time, it was actually regional. It was providing service on both sides of the state line as the Kansas City Public Service Company. And its last gasp with streetcar service specifically was 1957, and that is the same route that was restored this month with the Main Street extension of the streetcar. That was the last operating segment back in 1957. But fast forward to the creation of ATA in the 60s. It was created with a bi-state interstate compact cross that was bi-state and Kansas and Missouri. And so the goal was to keep the system running and to transfer those private sector assets to that new entity. And then shortly after that, there was a tax approved on the Missouri side, not on the Kansas side, to fund operations. And we still have that tax today. So that's what essentially created the environment we're in today until the city decided to do the streetcar and sort of keep that off on its own with KCATA technical support. And but it has been a really interesting example of collaboration when it wasn't necessary. So I'm proud to have been at the table and at part of those decisions where we're using KCATA systems and technical expertise instead of creating it separately, which would cost money, right? And possibly lead to missed opportunities. So that's kind of the short history of transit in Kansas City. It's a long one. There's pieces of that I've surely missed, but really, it was start with a private sector for-profit enterprise, quickly transition not quickly transition to public sector support in the 60s, creation of the ATA, and then fast forward to today where we have a mix of regular buses, bus rapid transit, the max lines, modern streetcars, and ADA paratransit. And so it's a much more diverse mix of services and microtransit. I shouldn't forget about that. And all that reflecting the changes in the industry and technology and advancements in how we move people around.
It's so funny, something we use every day, not many people know the history of it, so it's interesting to hear you talk about it and how it all became, and oh my goodness, that's just
It's hard
unknown
to believe
knowledge.
everybody was being pulled around by horses and mules.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they'd let me drive then, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll just start that up again. Uh, man, but yeah, you just don't know about the rich history and what it took to get to where we are now. So that's quite an accomplishment for you guys to have the streetcar. That's
Yeah. I need to give a shout out on the history.
yeah.
So our friends at Union Station just opened a history exhibit of the streetcar. And
Ooh.
so right inside the east entrance, after you get off the streetcar platform at Union Station,
Mhm.
there's a cool new exhibit that's just opened in the last couple months that goes into all that history that I just, talked about. So you can see it, you could read it yourself. And of course, there's the Missouri Valley room at the downtown library that has lots of documents and old maps and everything where you can read about it yourself. So strongly recommend those those two if you want to catch up on your own side of the history.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Whew. Um, while we were talking about the ADA, I just finished reading a book, No Pity. Somebody Shapiro.
Mm.
I can't remember the first name, forgive me, but it's out there for audiobooks and everything, but that is quite a history of ADA and some of the stories that
Yeah, there's a
led to it.
documentary out there about one of the people who was one of the chief advocates that led to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I watched that a couple years ago, and it was really enlightening because I started in California, I think. I may get that wrong, but yeah, there was kind of like one person was the linchpin of that original movement, and so they kind of covered that story, and it was really intriguing to hear how it started so much earlier than 1990. Like, I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of obvious when you say it, but like, just to know that it spent, 30 years or longer advocating for something and then it finally comes to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good book, you should look into it.
Yep.
Mm. Joseph Shapiro?
Okay.
Maybe? I don't
All right.
know. Don't trust me. Shapiro is all I remember. Okay, let me look at the next questions here. I wanna make sure we're not missing anything. How does KCATA balance providing public service with advocacy and education to the community? So I feel like we've talked a little bit about that, but is that something you can elaborate on more?
Yeah, so KCRTA, and I apologize, the acronyms can be a little confusing. I did
Oh,
not create either of them, but
apologies.
they're Kansas City Regional Transit Alliance, which is different than the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority. No, no worries, happens all the time. So that is a nonprofit that's in its 20th year that was created to advance advocacy for public transit in the region. And I've been a proud board member for quite some time and am a past chair. And we actually leveraged that entity to do the election work for the streetcar authority or for the streetcar extension, sorry, to Midtown. And it's had a couple of other successes. So right now we're pushing regional funding because there are multiple transit studies underway right now that don't have a funding mechanism identified. The funding mechanism we used for streetcar and that's used for buses is currently tapped out. So that would be for buses, two citywide sales taxes, and then so Kansas City, Missouri is providing the lion's share of transit funding for the whole region. And then for streetcar, it's the special district, the Transportation Development District, that is a mix of its own in district sales tax and special assessments on property that provide unique funding for that system. So once you start looking beyond that, it really becomes untenable to either apply either of those models and either increase the rates or do something new following either one of those models. And so, as a regional transit alliance, we wrote a white paper probably about 5 or 6 years ago, advocating for a county by county vote on a sales tax that would then be used however each county sees fit, and they could happen independently of each other in timeline and ballot language and how they would be structured. Even the governance of how they spend that money on transit could differ. And we think that's sort of a reality that is, if you followed regional cooperation on anything, whether it was, sports teams or COVID or, economic development, it's hard to for this region to collaborate. You could come up with any reason why there are a host of them, whether it's trust or competitiveness or the state governments having, competing priorities. But at the end of the day, it is hard to collaborate on an issue unless we're forced to by the federal government, which does happen in some cases. So uh, we think that a regional funding mechanism, by each county, could really move the needle on transit funding. And so that's where we're at right now. So after the streetcar elections and then doing some earlier work with Jackson County, which didn't end up going to a vote in 2012, we really think this is the next step for advocacy: is building the coalitions and convincing the elected officials to put something on the ballot. And in our early work, we did some polling this year that showed majority support for a half cent 10-year sales tax that would go to basic bus service, majority support in 4 counties. So on the Missouri side, Jackson and Clay, and on the Kansas side, Wyandotte and Johnson. And varying levels, but all majority support. And whether we go, immediately to a vote, in the next year or two, or we take time to build, um, you know, fill in the information about what each county would like to do and when they would like to do it, it's the only option. So if people say they want more streetcar or more max bus rapid transit or more transit service in general, even more sidewalks, this is the way, this is a way that will work. And we don't think there's another path that's clear to us or anybody that's worked on this issue in the past 50 years. So there's been so many fits and starts, primarily in Kansas City, Missouri. So we've not even asked the region before, as a region or each as individual counties, whether they would fund transit. Like, just give them an opportunity to say yes or no to something. That's really what we're asking right now. And then all the details, the counties and the elected officials can fill all that in. We know they'll want to do that anyway. But we're really sort of trying to push the issue because we've essentially run out of options. And this is the clearest next option.
Mm, that's a heavy weight to bear.
Yeah.
What can the community do to help other than the vote, obviously? But what is there more that the community can help with?
So, number one, join the Regional Transit Alliance, kcrta.org. So,
Done.
we're a
Mhm.
low barrier to entry. I think a basic membership is $25. We don't have a recurring source of revenue, so we're member supported. And we're the only advocacy group that's focused on transit in the region. Others are intersectional with other things like Black Walk KC, Sunrise Movement. Um, but it's uh, it's an important topic, and it impacts the region's economic competitiveness. This is not as widely reported as just the lack of funding, but um, since we don't spend as much per capita as our peer cities, that means people are spending more on their own transportation costs, which keeps them from spending the money on something else. So hopefully that is clear to the people who've been an impediment on this issue politically, because we can't continue being not competitive economically. Other regions are doing so much better and attracting more residents, attracting more Fortune 500 companies, attracting more mega events like World Cup, um, because they've invested in a way we haven't. And people know it who've looked at this issue, and we're kind of continuing to look the other way. But the reason I got behind streetcar so strongly was because I saw it as a catalyst on this issue. That I knew that if we had the right mix of people doing the right project, that we could do a proof of concept, downtown streetcar, that it would catch on for people to want more, Main Street extension, 4 additional studies underway, but unfunded. And then people would reach the ultimate conclusion that regional funding was necessary to address transit in our bi state region that spans 7 to 9 counties and all these different elected officials and governing bodies making separate decisions and seemingly unable to collaborate on basic things. So that's the big nutshell for my advocacy work, is getting that one. And it is big. You're right. Like, it seems unwieldy
Yeah.
and big, and lots of people to talk to and convince, and not everybody's convinced. Certainly not yet. But that's, I've got the time.
Hmm. I was just thinking when you were talking about coordinating all of those people, it's hard enough to coordinate my family. We have 6 people. And so I'm like, how is he coordinating all of these different aspects? That is
It is a team effort.
yeah.
Transit advocacy in Kansas City is a small team effort.
Yeah.
But you asked what people can do. They
Mhm.
can let their elected officials know that transit's a priority. And, I say this all the time, and, people get sick of hearing it. But if you don't know who your elected officials are at your city, county, and state, and even the people that go represent you in Washington, like, know who they are, number one. And number two, especially your local elected officials, because they can influence more of your day-to-day living than someone in Washington sometimes. Depends on what services you rely on, but um, know who those people are. If they're local, they will probably make the time for you. If they don't make the time for you, then why are they in public office? And then you can let your voice be heard on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know where to start sometimes, so I appreciate the guidance with that.
Well, you
Um,
can always join KCRTA and we'll help guide you through the process.
yes, I'll be like, "You need to talk to him
Yeah.
right now." Oh my goodness, wow. My brain is still absorbing a lot of what you said because that's just so much that we're not used to talking about on a community level. So I'm trying to put all the pieces together, but I appreciate how you said and explained everything. It makes more sense in the grand picture of things, in the grand picture of the mud that is in my brain.
Well, transportation is a big topic, and a lot of people just assume that it is the way it is because of some reason that they don't understand or don't have the time to figure out. And so, as someone who came to transportation in a non-traditional way, I wasn't trained that way. I didn't go to engineering or planning school. I came in as an advocate who was looking, and someone with a journalism background who wanted these things explained in clear language. That sometimes the profession does itself a disservice, and this is not the only profession that does this, but by using jargon and technical terms that don't resonate and people can sometimes tune out. And so, one thing I've tried to bring to my professional work at Transpro is speak plainly, try to avoid jargon if at all possible, and just try to tap into the real needs and outcomes that people are trying to achieve. Like, we didn't just do streetcar to do rail. We did it to transform downtown, to make it lively and attractive, and to, sure, absolutely induce economic development. No one would run away from that. And why should they? Because downtown, before the streetcar opened, especially where I lived in the Crossroads, was so quiet on nights and weekends.
Mm,
And now it's no Times Square, but it's, way more lively than it used to be. And that's having an impact on the local economy. It's one of the hot spots of sales tax revenue, and nobody probably would have predicted that 10, 15 years ago.
yeah, I can't recall the name of the restaurant, but there was a news report that said it was helping a newly opened restaurant as well, and it was just amazing to
Once
see
they
all
get
these
past
things.
construction, it's all
Oh, don't
rainbows and
remind me
unicorns.
about I had so much problems navigating through the construction.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about infrastructure is there's got to be a little bit of pain to get
Yes.
to that the amenity. And unfortunately, with streetcar, because it's being built in the street,
Mhm.
and they want to get the utilities out of the way first so that you don't have that disruption once the streetcar's operating. And the amount of coordination that the city and the utilities and the streetcar team have to do is pretty insane. Like 30 some utilities are all operating in the right of way at some point, and they've got to coordinate with all those people, and all that's done way in advance of anything being put down in the street. Then there's bringing in all the technicians who know how to lay rail and overhead wires and do the testing and make sure we're complying with federal regulations and safety requirements. Because if you don't, there's,
Yeah.
consequences to that.
Yep.
And that's just yeah, the level of
Whew.
effort is big, which is why it's an expensive project.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't look at that $352 million price tag and think that it was all gone to waste. Like, we bought a fleet of streetcars that are primarily made in the US, in upstate New York. We paid specialized people to plan and build and spend their time here in Kansas City building our amenity. And then at the end of that, we get to enjoy it for forever, as long as we can properly maintain it. And by every measure, we should be able to.
Mm. Wow. If it's okay with you, I'd like to take a break and just kind of absorb a little bit more. Would that be all
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everyone. We will be right back. Thank you.
Living with a disability can feel isolating, but it doesn't have to. At The Whole Person, peer support groups bring people together who truly understand. The Whole Person provides a variety of peer support groups. Brain injury group, share experiences and navigate life after your injury. Mental health group, connect with others managing anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges. DIY life skills, build confidence and skills for independence, designed for ages 18 to 24. In addition to these, we offer specific groups for spinal cord injuries, blindness and low vision, and deaf and hard of hearing. Whatever your journey, you're not alone. To find your group and attend our next meeting, please visit thewholeperson.org/peer support or call us at 816-561-0304. Peer support at The Whole Person. Real people, real connection.
Hi, everyone. We are back. We're going to jump into some more questions here and then we'll see where the conversation goes.
All right.
Okay, so I wanted to ask what lessons from the streetcar project could be applied to the future transit expansions?
The number one is we can build things. We can do we can build great things in Kansas City. So, the airport and the streetcar are probably the two most recent examples of something where Kansas City has really kind of nailed it, right? And that hasn't always been the case. It can be hard to get people together and aligned on a thing. And then even if you do get that alignment, the outcome may differ. And also, we have an infrastructure backlog that makes building something new a bit of a political challenge when there's so much just to maintain. So I think building something new and making that thing great and making it a collaboration. I think and this is not a slight to either organization, but had it been just built and operated by KCATA or just built and operated by the city, it would not have the same feel because those other voices were part of the design, part of the political process, part of the operation of the system. You have something that just feels different. It feels Kansas City. Not to say that those two organizations aren't Kansas City, they obviously are, but just bringing in that diversity of background and opinion and expertise, having people who, with a marketing mindset, develop the streetcar brand rather than just having, city employees with a consultant, like that all had an impact that you see in the way the streetcar looks, feels, operates today. And that's, I think, the other thing that I would say is having those diverse groups work on a thing so that it can be the best it can be, because you can't just do that with, you know, uh, you know, existing organizations on their own. So the power of diversity of thought and background. And then finally, the accessibility. Um, I think a lot of people in transit, they know accessible features and accessible transit can be achieved, but they look at the cost as an impediment. But the upfront cost is just part of the equation. If you don't make those investments, like the level boarding and the no step interior of the cars, then you end up impeding people's mobility and you have to address it some other way. So you just deal with the cost up front, make it the best experience possible, and then you will minimize the expense, later operationally, because it's such a better experience. And I think those are the things that I would hope people would take away from the streetcar is we can do big things, we can do them really well, have a diverse team helping you plan it, operate it, and then make it as accessible as possible.
Right, yeah. And it's good to make sure that you're starting off the project in the correct way instead of adding things to it when it's done, because then it's not as fluid moving, I guess. So, yeah, I
Yeah, we
appreciate
absolutely
that.
had several times when people wanted to take the streetcar in a different direction, whether it was just the alignment downtown or the funding mechanism or branding, or whether it should be, part of the ATA or not. And, people who were leaders in the project, myself thankfully included, were very, very fixed on an outcome, and that is to build the best streetcar in America, and to make it fast, free, and frequent from a user perspective. And we succeeded because we had that sort of fixed focus on those outcomes. And once you start moving away from those outcomes and bringing in, you know, things that are really maybe a just different agenda or not as customer or user focused, or don't have financial sustainability front of mind, which we certainly did, then you lose something. I mean, I'm not going to name other projects that haven't had those things, but people know that there are other transit projects across the world and across the US, even in Missouri, that have not had those things fixed focus for the duration of the design and construction and operation. And thankfully, we did. And so I would encourage people that come to the table and want to get involved in this conversation to try to find alignment on what we build, what we operate, and then stick to it. Because then you're going to be more successful and you're probably going to come in budget and you're going to deliver on time. But once you start like arguing with yourself or negotiating with yourself about, different things, um, so just having that clear vision from the start of what you want to achieve with transit is really, really important and well exemplified by streetcar.
Yeah, absolutely. It came together very well. Oh my goodness. There's so much with this conversation. It's hard to wrap your brain around it, honestly, as somebody who's just jumping into this conversation. You know what I mean? Like I haven't always been involved in this conversation, so
Well, hopefully, I've helped demystify some of it
and
because
added
I
more mystery.
fair, fair, fair. Because yeah, when I started my journey in transit, I didn't know anything. I was not a regular. Well, I was a regular bus rider once I moved downtown, and then a little bit in college, but like not my whole life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn the system and understand how it worked so that I could understand why it was producing these outcomes or not producing these outcomes for me or other people in the community. And yeah, that took a long time to learn all that.
That's about where I'm at. I'm still learning that and all of the jargon that
Yeah.
goes
Call
into
me
it.
out on that next time
Oh,
if
no,
I
you're
say something.
good. You're good. It's just I'm trying to keep up and, I don't wanna interrupt meetings with, like, 20 people and be like, "What does this word mean?" You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I'm learning. I'm learning. But everybody has been so kind. You've been so kind in explaining, uh, bigger pictures than what I'm thinking of in my head, so
Cool.
appreciate that. Okay, let me look at the next question here. Oh, mm, you jumped to 7 and I didn't realize that. Okay, 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 okay. I'm with it. I'm with it. What do you think is next for public transportation in Kansas City?
Okay,
Do
what do
you
I
know?
I don't know, and really nobody does, but I have,
Good.
and the Regional Transit Alliance has a vision for what it could be. And that is a regionally funded system that covers the majority of the urbanized area of Kansas City. So if you think about where there is a decent amount of transit, so the urban core of Kansas City, Missouri, south the river, and particularly along Main Street now, and Main, or Troost and Prospect and 31st Street, like the key corridors where there's actually pretty decent service. But getting beyond those areas, like east of the Blue River, north of the Missouri River, across the state line, south of 75th Street. Like those are all kind of transit deserts. And my goal and RTA's goal is to close that gap so that moving around, 31st and Prospect to, 39th and Broadway is not the only option you have if you want to use transit or have to use transit. That you can live in Overland Park or live in Gladstone and get around as easily, even if it's on foot or on bicycle, as someone who's driving a car. Because we have literally spent the last 50, 60 years almost exclusively building infrastructure for cars, whether it's parking or streets or highways. And it just has not. It has served some people well, but it has really created barriers for a lot of others. Yeah, exactly. And so highlighting what those barriers are, that people who experience those barriers are not able to fully participate in the economy, which is bad for the Kansas City economy, because everybody should be able to fully participate and earn a wage and have a safe place to live and get around wherever they need to go. And until we meet those goals, or at least advance them better than we are today, that we really need to focus on this. And so, my hope is that we build a little more streetcar. There are studies underway right now that, again, don't have a funding mechanism identified. We're not going to cover the whole region of streetcar. It's just not financially feasible. This is not a rich region. And until we make headways with that, it's going to be a primarily bus system, if not microtransit or something like that, that can provide the coverage for less money, less public money. And there isn't a role that I've seen for the private sector financially that can sustain the system over the long term. So if I had a nickel for every time someone said, "Well, where's the private sector in all this?" Well, they've got their other issues to worry about. And I think we all have pretty much come to the conclusion that transportation is a public sector service, and that we need to continue to treat it that way. If they come along and add something to the mix, absolutely. But to look to the private sector for long-term operational sustainability is folly, and we've tried and haven't come up with anything. And that's true in most places. So
Hmm,
make it the best public service you possibly can, provide it to as many people as possible for the lowest price, and that's the measure that will work here.
interesting. Okay, before I forget, you said micro something.
Micro transit.
Can you
So
explain that
it's like big
definition?
transit, but it's little.
Yeah, like
No, actually, it's
ah.
basically just, like you have a big bus that runs on a fixed route on a fixed schedule. So that's traditional transit,
Yeah.
whether it's a streetcar, a bus, or subway. And then what we call there's a group of transit services that is called demand response, which industry jargon warning. That just means that the vehicle isn't moving unless there's a trip request.
Yes.
So unlike the fixed route, fixed schedule
Mhm.
service like bus and streetcar, those vehicles just kind of sit until someone says, "I need to go from A to B,"
Yes.
and then they go pick them up. And they're usually zone based,
Mhm.
so meaning there's a barrier or a border drawn, and that's where those vehicles can go
Yes.
to A to B. So things that fall into that, complementary ADA paratransit, which is a service that is complementary to the fixed route bus and streetcar system. So it goes to places that that does, and the hours and the days of the week that that does. And then there's um, microtransit, which is usually associated with an app,
Mhm.
and it does the same thing. You say, "I want to go in the
Mhm.
app A to B," and then a vehicle comes eventually to pick you up and takes you on that trip.
Right.
So there's no walking to the bus stop or um, anything like that.
Right.
But it is still public transportation. And the word microtransit is a new sort of tech driven word, but it essentially just is what I just described.
Mhm.
It's a bus that's going to pick you up where you're at and take you to where you're going, often enabled by a mobile app.
Yeah. What comes to mind is it used to be called Share Affair, but now
Yep.
it's Ride KC Freedom.
Yep.
That comes to mind.
Yep, exactly. That falls into those suite of services. Microtransit here is called Ride KC Microtransit in Johnson County, and then Iris Ride KC Iris
Yes.
in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes.
So, you know, a little branding confusion there, but basically they function the same way, and are all both app based. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Learning new things.
yeah.
I'm gonna start using that word now.
Microtransit.
Yeah.
All right. Have you
Okay.
used it?
No.
Okay. Well, I would say that it's really good for navigating Johnson County because it has a very big coverage area,
Okay.
but it doesn't run 7 days a week. So just you should know that.
Okay.
And then the Iris service, I think, is 7 days a week, and it covers. I think it's mostly covering the Northland right now. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Go to ridekc.org and check. But yeah, those services are helpful where you don't have good basic bus service,
Mhm.
transit gaps, as we say, or transit deserts, and those do exist, and they're usually for a fee. So even though the bus system today is zero fare, those microtransit and share fare and things they do have um,
A fee
a fee. Yep.
associated.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Interesting. Hmm. It's different being on this side of the conversation, if that makes sense. Like just as a regular user, we're only exploring XYZ and now we're looking at the whole picture, I feel like, and it's way bigger than I thought.
Well, I'm sure you have needs that go beyond Kansas City, Missouri, like
Yes.
to get around. Like most
Yes.
people do, we don't stop travel at the jurisdiction where we live
Yep.
or work. And so for the transit system to operate that way is a real disservice. And it's a political problem and a funding problem. It's not that someone's trying to be morally bankrupt or anything like that.
Right.
Like it's just we haven't come to agreement on how we're gonna grow the system first and then how well fund it and then grow the system in that order. Because it is at the end of the day 100% a funding problem.
How do other places find the funding? Because so my dad's German and he talks about the transportation in Germany like it's amazing and it's available and all the things I can't even remember. But how do other places find the funding? I
I
guess.
am not
Is
a
that a hard question?
transit expert outside of the US, but
Okay. Okay.
I would surmise that the federal government or the national government plays a bigger role in the operational cost of those services.
Okay.
um, and probably the taxes are higher as a result.
Probably.
So, and that's just a cultural thing that has probably been that way for some time.
Mm,
In the U.S., the federal government plays little to no role in the funding of operations of transit. They will
mm,
give you money to buy buses. They will give you money to buy bus stops and shelters and all that. But the operational money for the most part, is not a thing.
mm,
So that leaves local governments on the hook.
mm,
And in Kansas and Missouri, the states don't play much of a role. They play a little role, but it is little,
mhm,
and littler on the Missouri side than on the Kansas side for
mhm,
this region.
mhm,
And like for the ATA's $100+ million annual budget, the state of Missouri gives them like $350,000,
mm.
and that doesn't even buy a bus.
I was gonna say, does that even buy a bus?
It does not buy one city bus. It
Okay.
would buy a little microtransit vehicle or two, but yeah, it's I think Missouri is 46 out of 50 in states providing funding for public transportation.
Mm,
Forget where Kansas is, but it's higher.
mhm,
Um, and people sort of forget transit runs in rural areas. So and Kansas City isn't it's big, but it's still, what you think of Kansas City area has rural areas that have, you know, actually have transit.
mhm.
There's a nonprofit operator who I have to give a shout out to called Oats, OATS.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
they provide service in like 80,
Warrensburg.
87 counties in Missouri. And
Mhm,
they're just a nonprofit. Like they don't have a tax.
mhm.
Um, and they get by with donations and little small contracts with local governments that are in the rural areas. For example, they run the local dial-a-ride in uh, Lee Summit,
Mm,
but they also do stuff in the real rural areas, connecting those little smaller towns. And yeah, that's yeoman's work.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. We are thankful. Very thankful. Ugh. Well, I don't have any other questions that I can think of right now. Is there anything else you'd like to share for the public or
Again, I'll give a shout out to joining the Regional Transit Alliance. This
Yes.
work is hard. It's not free, although we all volunteer our time and don't have a recurring source of revenue. So, joining RTA, even if you don't want to lift a finger to do anything, besides that, also we're building coalitions in each one of those four counties that I talked about. So,
Yeah.
Johnson, Jackson, Wyandotte, and Clay. So if
Okay.
you're interested, contact RTA through kcrta.org, and we'd be happy to, even if you don't know anything about transit, like that's okay.
Mhm.
Like we know enough to like fill in the gaps for you,
Love it.
to connect you with the right people. We'll walk you through, who represents you in county government, how to write a letter, how to show up at a budget hearing, how to advance this topic,
Mhm. Mhm.
because there's just too few of us right now to make that whole thing happen with any speed. So we need more people at the table, more advocates. Even if you don't have a lot of time, we'll take a little time and a little bit of money to help advance this issue that will help Kansas City compete economically with its peers.
Yeah. And hopefully with this podcast we can share to the community and say we need more help in this area. So we'll
Absolutely.
see
And
what
I'm
we can
proud to
do.
have partnered with the whole person in my work at KCATA and Streetcar Authority. on making transit more accessible. So really, thank you for that and being open to it, and helping us spread the word that we have one of the more accessible streetcar systems, if not the most, in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Sure.
However we can help. Well, everyone, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Of
It's been
course. Thanks
great.
for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Korf. I am the vision impaired host for the whole podcast. If you want to like and subscribe, that would be most helpful. We would love it. We just want to get our information out to the community so we can provide support to anyone who needs it. If you want to take a look at our calendar, we do have that on our website. That will show all the peer support groups that we offer. You are more than welcome to give us a call too. We would be more than happy to answer any questions, but it is all listed on the calendar. Take a look at it, enjoy our new website, and thank you so much for tuning in.